out there? All right. On the count of 3, we're going to open the doors and you guys run on in. A 1, 2, 3.
Never gonna say goodbye, no.
Welcome to Kids Camp. Come on in. Find a spot.
Never gonna say goodbye, no.
Yeah. You guys can dance if you want to. You're already in, you're ready to go. Get that head bob going. Yeah. Come on in. Woo! Yeah, everybody, find your spot.
Never gonna let you go. Never gonna say goodbye, no. Never gonna give you up.
All right, how are you guys doing today? Thumbs up if you're good. You guys doing awesome? Doing it. We're almost in. Almost. How many of you guys overnight campers who slept super well last night? Just snoring, sleeping. Okay, who didn't sleep at all last night from my overnight campers? Oh, that's way too many. Way too many of you. Who got chocolate chip pancakes today? Woo! Yeah, so good. You guys need to, when you go through the line, you guys should definitely thank your lunch lady kitchen crew people. Say thank you for cooking us this awesome food, because it's been really good, right? Yeah. All right, day campers, hello. If you're here, you can wave, say hello. Okay, all our overnight campers, on the count of 3, I want you to yell welcome to our day campers. Okay, ready? As loud as you can. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. We are so glad you are here. We're going to have a ton of fun today. It's going to be a hot one, but I hear there's lots of fun water stuff going on outside too. It's gonna be a blast. Are you guys ready to do some worship this morning as well? Kick off our day. Kick it off right. Worshiping Jesus. Okay, everybody come on down to the front. Come on down. Fill the space. There's lots of room. Lots of room. All right, we're going to get warmed up with this little video, and we're going to help you do it. Let's go.
Come on, clap your hands. Here we go. That's it. Yeah, we're all in this together, and we're having fun. We're here to spread the love of God to everyone. Gonna get a little crazy, yeah, a little wild. Here we go now, come give it a try. Move it to the left now. Move it to the right. Find someone you don't know and give
job. You guys look good and sound good too. All right, we're going to do a song that you know very, very well. It's called Wake. But we have some motions to it now. I don't know, have any of you guys been watching Mission Kids Monday at all? Some of you? Okay. So there's some motions that we learned, but Layla, my friend Layla, say, hi, Layla. We're going to teach you some moves to wake, and then we're going to do it and have a blast, okay? Sound good? You guys good with that? Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so what do we do first? At break of day, right? At break of day, you go like this. Hope we rise. We're going to speak your name, and we lift our eyes. Tune our hearts into your beat. And where we walk, there you'll be. You guys are good. You're so good. Okay, and then you go fire in our eyes, like this. This is a fun one, yeah? Our lives a light, and then your love is untamed, and it's blazing out, and the streets will glow. Wake within me, your heart forever. And then you do it again. You guys can do that? All right, cool. Let's go. Let's go.
Your name, lift our eyes, tune our hearts to your beat. 'Cause where we walk, there you'll be. With fire in our eyes, our lives alive. Your love untamed, it's blazing out. The streets will glow forever bright. Your glory's radiant through the night. 'Cause you will never fade away. Your love is here to stay by my side. Shining through me every day, you will never fade away. Your love is here to stay by my side, shining through me every day.
You are living it, so astounding. Your love is the ocean, you can drown me. The sweet escape, the lovely taste, the taste of sea. I'm on the grace, the place to be. It means I'll never need an umbrella. I'm cool in the cold and the hot weather, whether I never ever understand. I'm a man in the hands of great plans. Stand with faith in a life never known touch. Steps up a clutch, but what's the dream of? What's the hope in? What's the doubt for? Live to no end. This is living. Life I've been given the gift. If I'm a living, I'm living to death. So what's the dream of? What's the hope in? What's the doubt for? Live to no end. This is living. Life I've been given the gift. If I'm a living, I'm living to death.
This is where we You take me higher than I've been before. It's your perfect love that sees me soar. God, your freedom is an open door. You are everything I want and more.
All right. Thanks for worshiping. You guys are awesome. We love it. So glad you're here. Go ahead and have a seat. Go ahead and find your seat. Do you guys love getting excited for Jesus? Wait. Do you guys love getting excited for Jesus? Yeah. Awesome. All right. As you're finding your seat, I'm going to have you give it up for our special guests. On the count of 3, there's only half of them present, but that's okay. On the count of 3, give her your biggest scream, loud round of applause.
Tonight is gonna be epic. Feels like a roller coaster. Tonight is gonna be epic.
How's everybody? Oh my goodness. Candy everywhere. I love it. Did you get some? Candy? Yes. All right. Well, you know us at Kids Camp, we like lots of candy, lots of fun, lots of things. Love it. Oh, Cindy's coming with a little more. Hey, we're doing live stream, so if you're joining us today, we're so happy that you're here, that you're tuning in, having fun with us. We invited the day campers today. They're here. They're loving what we're doing. We're having a good time. Here's Cindy. She finally made it up here. Late candy. They love it. Well, we're so glad everybody's here. If you're a day camper, wave. Let me see you. All right. Oh, here's some more over here. So fun. We have a big day planned. So many fun things to do today. Yes. You don't have a microphone. Maybe one of those. Try one of those. All right, guys. All right, 3, 2, 1. Shh. All right.
Good morning.
Can hardly contain the excitement in here. I'm just saying.
We're
Everybody's
just
so
shaking.
happy to
We're
be
so
here.
excited.
Oh my goodness. So much fun.
If you're at home, you should wave at us.
That's right. Hi,
Wave.
home people.
Hi. Hi, everybody. Well, you saw some of the things that we have outside. They're not totally blown up, but we have wonderful things planned. Lots of games, lots of water. lots of stuff. Oh, she's ringing. Anyway, so as we go through the day today, you really need to listen to all of your leaders because we have so many things and we don't want to miss out.
That's right. We're going to have a good time. And, you know, we have a couple camp rules, and I'm pretty sure that we have some special guests
I think so.
that are going to tell us about it. So why don't you check this out?
Check it out.
Well, hello, campers. I'm Tommy Tipster. I bring you all the tips.
And I'm Bobby Big Head, and I bring you all the big fun. Woo-wee! Wait a minute. This don't feel right.
I think we're a little
This don't feel
tired.
right. I think we need to flip it around.
We should maybe
Flip
just,
it?
Well, hold on 1 second.
Oh, that's so much better. I feel like me again.
All right, I'm back to normal. This is so great. Hey,
I bring you to
maybe the day campers didn't know that. We have new campers today,
We
Tommy.
do. Well, my name is Tommy Tipster, and I bring you the tips.
And I'm Bobby Big Hat, and I do bring you the big fun. Woo!
Oh, it's so good to see all you new kiddos here. If you're a day camper, can I hear you make some noise? Wasn't loud. Wasn't loud. One more time. One more time. One more time. If you're a day camper, can I hear you make some loud noise?
All right, yeah, good job,
very
day
good,
campers.
very good.
Now, all the overnight campers, they know we've been having a ton of fun
Woo-wee.
all day yesterday.
fun.
Lots of games, but we've got a lot of stuff planned for today there, Tommy.
It's going to be so much fun, but it's going to be very hot.
Oh,
It's
so
going to be
warm.
very hot today. So, the number one thing you have to do today is hydrate or you're going to dehydrate.
That's right, that's 2 syllables, hydrate.
Or you
Di-
dehydrate.
And nobody's dying today, so everybody needs to drink plenty of water.
Plenty of water.
And if you're feeling a little bit like tuckered out, just sit in some
Where I
shade.
come from, it is not this hot. Not this hot at all.
Tommy, where do you come from?
That's for another conversation. I do not have a birth certificate.
We can never identify your accent. It's always changing. We just don't know where you're
I'm
from.
a man of many colors. No one can figure me out.
So anyways, we got a ton of fun planned today. We got music. We got a message about understanding we're wanted by
From
God.
Pam. I like Pam.
Oh, Pam, she's the best. She
It's
keeps
so
coming
great.
back every year.
It's
It's great.
great.
And then we've got extreme games this afternoon.
Extreme games.
It's gonna
We're
be a
tell you-
blast.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna
And
be
to have
fun.
the most fun in camp, there's 2 things we got to do.
Two things. What are the first one?
First one, respect the people.
And number 2 is?
Respect the place.
So that means cut in line and throw trash on the floor and rip holes in things.
No. That means let somebody go before you, say nice
Oh,
things, and
respect
take care of
people.
the stuff around us.
Okay.
That
Got
way
it,
we have the
yeah.
most fun because we got a lot of fun for us
So
today.
much fun. Going to be lots of fun.
All right, well, let's get after it.
I'm Tommy Tipster, and I'll bring you the tips.
And I'm Bobby Big Hat. I bring you big fun.
Woo-wee.
All right. We love Tommy Tipster and Bobby Big Hat, don't we? They're so much fun. Well, we're going to get to our first bit of fun, and that is our day campers are going to stand up. We'll do that after. So we're going to stand up, and we're going to have all our day campers head to the square for their big movie that they're going to watch. All right, so day campers, jump up, head on out. And while they're doing that, I want to announce the speaker for the morning is Pam. We talked to Pam yesterday. She had some great things for us, didn't she? So she's going to meet with us again, have some more great things for us to hear about today. I'm pretty sure that she's got some good things for us to know about God. So let's give it up for Pam, everybody.
Yay! Whew. How you guys sleep all really good? Everyone's well rested, feeling good. Yeah. I slept in my own bed and I still didn't even sleep good, so I know. So even if you're watching online, you may not have slept good last night. I'll keep talking. I'm gonna grab a music stand so I can put my notes on it. So while I'm doing that though, I want you to think about a movie, a book that you've seen, other way around, you've read, a book that you've read. I could have said a movie you read and a book you watched, but that would not be. Something that you watched or something that you read where a good guy catches the bad guy, and think about how that happened. Like, how did the good guy eventually catch the bad guy and tell someone sitting next to you your favorite movie or book where the good guy catches the bad guy? How does he catch him? Is it a, epic fight at the end? Is it, I think of like the Wild West. It's always like the cowboy like lassoing the bad guys. He's like riding away. But what movie or book have you seen where the good guy catches the bad guy? I'm thinking of all the Disney movies that I've seen. So many. All right. Now, if you remember my signal, when you're done talking, I usually go 3, 2, 1, shh. And you guys are pros at it. Awesome. So yesterday, we talked a lot about how your heart and your mind can be a little bit like the Wild West if you don't have a strategy or a plan in place to control what you think about and how you think about things and what you know about God. It can be kind of crazy in there, especially when something crazy happens outside in the environment you're in, or in your neighborhood or in your city. If you don't have your mind set on how you should think about things, it's going to be the Wild West up in there. It's going to be bad guys all over the place. Bandits are going to be stealing your peace and your joy, and you're going to have a grouchy attitude. So, in fact, at times, I grew up in Phoenix where it was really hot, but at times I noticed that I can get really grouchy when it's hot out. And I just realized this week that I probably, knowing that it's going to be hot out, should have a plan. Knowing that I'm going to be a little grouchy, should have a plan to make sure that when someone comes up to me and says something to me that I'm not like, they're like, how are you doing? And I'm like grouchy at them and say, fine, like when you just are feeling grouchy and you don't have anything against the person, but you just feel grouchy. Anybody just feeling grouchy this morning? Yeah, sometimes you don't even know why you're feeling grouchy, right? It takes you a whole week to figure it out. You're like, oh, that's why I was feeling grouchy 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So a lot of that is thinking about what you're thinking. And so remember we had our verse. So I'm going to have you stand up, and we're going to practice our verse. And because really it kind of puts into a little snapshot, a little picture of exactly what you should do to help your mind. So stand up. You need a stretch anyway. Otherwise, if you sit too long, I know you'll fall asleep because nobody slept last night, right? All right, so first word, and the address where our verse is found is 2 Corinthians 10:5. And if you got the sticker yesterday, I have mine on the back of my notes. That is the verse that we're going to be doing. But it's pretty simple. It just starts with the word we, so you can point to everybody. We destroy. Let me see the best destroy. Yes, like gone. Destroy is my favorite because I know who's already done this today. Anyone argued already today? It's so easy to do. Yeah. So we destroy arguments. And then remember, you learned a new word yesterday. It's lofty. So we destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God. Okay? And then this is my favorite part. And it's all in the wrist. Take every what? What are we taking captive? Every thought captive to obey Christ. That is really the key to life in general. If you can master that one verse, you're going to be doing so good as a Christian. So go ahead and have a seat. Okay, so I talked about, and we looked at Elijah, and we did a little timeline of history. And so I want to now, we were over here, and we had the beginning of time, right? And then we walked towards our time in the Bible that we were looking at, which was in 1 Kings, 2 Kings. We're going to jump all the way to 2020, which I think would be about here. Yeah, no, hopefully not the end of the world. Here. Okay, so we're at 2020. And so I want you to, we're going to go from 2020, and we're going to go backwards in time to our time in the Bible. Because I want you to see that the things in the Bible really took place, and they are real events that took place in history. They have a time and a spot on the timeline of history. So 2020, right now we're at camp, right? We go back a little bit, maybe like 6 months. Some of you were in school. Hopefully you get to go back up here, but we'll see. So back here, school, go back a little bit farther, maybe like 1976. That's like who said yikes? That's not that far away. That was the year I was born. Thanks a lot. No. So I was like a little baby. 1976. All right, now think about history. Okay, think about mostly like the 50s. We think of cool songs, cool rock and roll songs. We got 1950, cool rock and roll songs. Now, if you studied history at all, there's some big wars that we fought in America's past in the world. We have World War II. We've got World War I. Okay, we've got the Civil War. Okay, before the Civil War was the Revolutionary War. 1776, 200 years before I was born, we got our independence, July 4th. Okay, keep going back a little bit farther though. If you go back even farther to like 1607, people were sailing across the ocean to find this new land that they would eventually call America. Okay, go back even farther. There was actually things like the pandemic that were even worse in history, and one of them was the bubonic plague. The 1300s, there was a plague called the bubonic plague, the black plague that went around. Go back even more than that. Keep going. I don't want to get too close. Does anybody know what happened in 79 AD? Anybody? I learned this. I did not know this, but actually, I thought it was like later on or earlier. Do you know? Yeah, it's right around that time. A very, very Pompeii. What happened at Pompeii? Does anyone know? What? Yes, Mount Vesuvius erupts in 79 AD. If you go back about to like between 30, 40 AD-ish, you're going to have the time when Jesus was alive on the earth. And then you're going to hit about the year 0, 3 BC, somewhere in there. Another baby is born that completely changes what happens after 2020. Completely changes. Okay, and that baby is Jesus. Now, before Jesus is born in our timeline, to get back to where we're currently at in our story, God was doing everything he could to reach out to his people. Because remember, he wanted God's people in God's place, and he wanted to be their king. And he was doing everything he could to reach out to them, even trying silence. So before Jesus was born, remember I said prophets would come and talk about God? There was a silence where God didn't send prophets. And he just wanted to see what, if people were left up to their own choices, what they would choose. He wasn't trying to direct them or anything. Just 400 years of silence. And you know what? That didn't work either. So before the silence, though, he was sending prophets and prophets. And so one of the prophets he sent was Elijah. And that is where our story is. So you can see how it's all just like a major timeline. But in that story, it's all about God's people, God's place, and he wants to be their king. And he's going to do everything he can to get their attention and get them to a kids camp in the year 2020 to get their attention. Because God loves us that much. We are wanted by God that much. Crazy, right? It's crazy. I heard you guys had some great conversations last night talking about what your next steps would be to get closer to God. I love that stuff. And tonight you can talk about your story. Like, what is God really doing in your heart? Because I would love to have a life like Elijah or like Elisha, who I always confused. Anyone else confuse them in the Bible? Yeah. Elijah, Elisha, they work together, but they're not the same person. But they have a great story. But man, I like my story because it's mine. And no one else can live my story but me. And so that's the cool thing about your story. If we had our Bible, remember our Bible's a history book. My son was reading a Bible and he got to the end of it and he was like, Mom, I need part 2, like book 2. And I'm like, you're living it right now. Like that's the next part of the story is you guys. If God were to put an example of someone's life in 2020 in another part of the Bible, it would be our lives. These are real people that believed in God, and it's their stories, and we get to learn from them. And you can also learn from the people around you, like your counselors. You could even learn what not to do from some of your counselors. I bet you they would give you some ideas of what's a bad idea. Because a lot of times, God puts people in our lives to be able to help us do that. Okay, so we left off with the epic showdown between Ahab and all the prophets of Baal and Elijah. And my favorite part was where Elijah pulls up his cloak and runs quicker than Ahab on a horse and makes it back to Jezreel. Now, does anybody remember the name of Ahab's wife? It's close, yet Jezebel. Now, she's quite a character. And one of the biggest choices you can make is who you're going to marry. And I say pray about who that is, because you want to make sure that you are in God's will when that happens. Because if you can marry someone that it's not, it can be really, really hard to follow God. And Jezebel makes it really, really hard for Ahab to follow God. And so Ahab says in chapter 19 of 1 Kings, if you have your Bibles, but I'm going to put some verses up on the screen again when we get there to ones I want you to read with me. The thing that we looked at yesterday was Elijah and what he was learning about God, because that fit that first part of the knowledge of God in our verse. Today we're going to talk about taking every thought captive so that we can obey Christ. And so a part of that is I want you to look for, as we're reading stories and looking at them up there, what did Elijah and Elisha do when they were tempted to have doubts and fears and weren't exactly sure what God had planned? Has anybody ever been afraid before? Have you ever doubted that you could do something that you had in front of you? Yeah, everybody feels those things. But we're going to see how they reacted and what they did to help them either make a good choice or make a bad choice, because people in the Bible don't always make good choices, but they're still there for us as an example. Okay, so in verse 19, it says, Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. And then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah saying, so may the gods do to me and more also, like she's real mad, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by this time tomorrow. So she basically says, I'm going to kill you. Like, I am going to track you down and take you out. Now, this is the surprising verse. We're going to put it up there in a second. It said, and it's verse 19:3. This is crazy to me, because I want you to, for a second, think about, what did Elijah just see God do? Like, he saw God take stones and wood and a bull and water and burn it all up, just because Elijah said, God, we want you to light this on fire. And then he saw God help him run. I wish I could run that fast. Help him run faster than a horse with that much energy to make it all the way back to the town before Ahab did. And you would think that he would be feeling like he could conquer the world, right? But you know what? Sometimes when you let your thoughts get control of you and you start thinking things like, I can't do this anymore, or I'm not sure that I can handle this, or I'm afraid of what I'm going to have to do next, things can happen. And so read this verse with me, because this is what Elijah does, which I was just surprised. It says, then he was afraid. He just saw God do all of that stuff. Then he was afraid. And he arose and ran for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. So what did Elijah do when he was tempted to doubt and fear? He was afraid. He let the fears overcome him. He ran. And then he did something that I'm just like, it's crazy. He got away from people. How many times when you're feeling hurt or you're feeling sad, do you tend to go away from people? Yeah? When probably the best thing for you is to go towards people. I know a lot of people that if they don't feel like they've had a very good week, they won't go to church on Sunday. They're just like, oh, I really messed up this week. I'm not going to go to church on Sunday. When church is the very place that you should go when you've had a rough week. But we start to think in our head, oh, God doesn't want me there. Like, I really messed up. And so I don't know what Elijah was thinking at that point, but he was not taking his thoughts captive. It was Wild West up in Elijah's head. He was just running for it. And he gets to the point where and I'll keep reading, it says in verse 4, but he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down. So he just starts walking. He came and sat down under a broom tree, which I just learned was like a juniper tree. And he asked, which I totally can see this, because there's times where I am so overwhelmed that I say this to myself. I'm just like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And he asked that he might die, saying, it's enough. Now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers. What is he believing about himself right now? That he's not worth it, right? He's believing that, and he's actually talking, which is a good thing to do. You should talk to God, but he's telling this to God. He's saying, this is what's going on in my head right now. I don't even want to live anymore. Okay, literally, he just did an amazing, crazy showdown where he defeated 450 prophets. He did all that cool stuff, but he's not in control of his mind, and he is doubting himself, and he's asking for his life to be over, and he's in a horrible, terrible, very depressed state. And it's so easy to get there because we're not controlling what goes into our head, and we're not controlling what we think about, we're not controlling what we see, and we're moving away from people when we should be moving towards people, because they're the people that God's designed us to help each other and lift each other up. Okay? Crazy. All right, so what happens is, basically, which I love God, he just cares so much for us. And it says, and he laid down and he slept under a broom tree. So he's just there sleeping, which sometimes I just need to take a nap. Anybody else? It's just nice to take a nap. He's sleeping, and an angel says, and behold, an angel touched him and said to him, arise and eat. So remember how God had provided Elijah food from birds? Now he's just sending an angel to provide him food. And he looked, and behold, there was at his head a cake. Yes, because that's what you want. You want a cake baked on hot stones in a jar of water. And he ate and he drank and he lay down again. So God is not trying to force him to do anything. He's just trying to meet his needs right now and just be with him. He's sending people to surround him. And the angel to surround him. And the angel of the Lord came again a second time and said, arise and eat, for the journey is too great for you. And he arose and ate and drank. And then he would think he has all the strength to do what he needs to do. He goes on this journey, 40 days and 40 nights. He walks. So this is crazy to me because he just ate food, and that food enabled him to go on a journey for 40 days and 40 nights. That would be like, I'm going backpacking, but I'm just going to eat now and not eat anything until I get back from being in the forest for 40 days and 40 nights. I'm good. I can handle it. He does this, right? And he goes on this journey, and he comes to this cave. Now, it's interesting where he goes. The Bible says he goes to Horeb, the Mount of God. Now, this was a mountain that in our timeline, if we go back a little bit to Moses, this is the same mountain that Moses was given the 10 Commandments. The same mountain. If you heard the 10 Commandments? And cool things happened on this mountain. So I don't know what Elijah's thinking. Is he thinking that maybe he needs to try to get to the spot where Moses, this man of God, was, to try to fix what's going on in his heart right now? I'm not sure what he's thinking, but he's not trusting God yet. And so it says, there he came to a cave and lodged in it. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him. So God's starting to nudge him. Like, hello, what are you doing? Hello. He says, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He said, this is what Elijah says, which is, sometimes I do this. He's like, "I have been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts. For the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant." And then he's complaining. Anyone complain? No. Oh, yeah. Yes, we all complain. You should all have your hands up. You all complain. Yep. It says, "They've thrown down your altars. They killed your prophets with the sword. And I, even I, am left. And they seek my life to take it away." So he's not only complaining. I think he's got a little bit of attitude with God. And you know what? God's okay with that. God's not saying to you, you got to change your attitude and you got to make sure you're a perfect person before you come to me. He takes you just as you are. And he's going to take you as you are, and he's going to help you with where you're at. And so he says, and God says to him, "Okay, go out and stand on the mount before the Lord." And the Lord, he said, I'm going to pass by you. Which people aren't supposed to see God. That's a big deal. He's like, "I'm going to pass by you." And so here's the coolest part, because a lot of times we look for God in big things. Like we want to see God do something crazy big to show us something. And a lot of times God's in the very small details. And we don't look for those. But it's in the stuff that happens every single day. I call them God's love notes to us. He's always writing these little love notes of little things. Like, for example, you're in the car and a song comes on the radio. Maybe you're listening to the Christian radio station, and it's like the perfect song. Anybody have that? It's like, yeah. It's like, oh, that's the song I needed at just the right time. Or you're sitting in church or in your Sunday school class or in your kids' ministry class, and the story is like all about something that you're struggling with. And you're like, I feel like God was talking right to me. Yeah, those are what I call God's love notes to us. And so this is what happens. He says, "A great and strong wind tore through the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake." So he's like hearing and seeing all this. "An earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, the sound of a low whisper. And when Elijah heard it, he was like, 'That is God.' And he wrapped his face in his cloak, and he went out and stood at the entrance. And again, God says to him, 'What are you doing here, Elijah?' And God says to him, 'Look, I want you to return on your way in the wilderness, go back to Damascus, and I'm going to help you out.' And he basically says, 'I want you to find Elisha.'" There's Elisha, yes. "And you are going to anoint him as your person you're going to mentor, and he's going to become the prophet after you." And so God's almost like forcing him to get a buddy. He's like, you need someone that you can mentor. And I encourage you, if you don't have someone that you're either pouring into or that you have pouring into you, you should do that, because that is so beneficial. All right, so we're going to skip ahead, and it's verse 19. And I love this because it says, he finally gets it, and he's got control of his thoughts and minds. And it says, "So he departed from there, and he found Elisha, the son of," I'll make you guys say that word. What is that? Sure. "Who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen in front of him, and he was the 12th. Elijah passed by him, and something that they did back in that day was they would put their cloak on someone that they wanted to mentor, like kind of giving them their jacket kind of a thing. And so he did that to signal to Elisha, 'Hey, I want you to come and train with me.' Okay, now Elijah, you would think, would have doubts, like, this guy just walked up to me and put a jacket on me, and but Elijah, God had made him ready to go. And I love this part because he says, he goes with Elijah, and then he says, 'But let me kiss my mother and father.'" Always kiss your mom and dad goodbye. "Kiss my mother and father, then I'll follow you." And he said to him, "Go back and do that." So he returned, and this is how much Elisha's ready to go. He not only goes back and says goodbye to his family, but if you guys have heard the song "Burn the Ships," it's one of the Christian songs out there. Yeah, where they're like, you get to a place and then you just burn the ships because you're not going back. He goes back, and he basically takes the oxen who were plowing the field, and he's like, "We're going to have a barbecue." So he cooks them up. And you know what he uses to light the fire? he uses the wood from the plow. So this is like his job. He's like, I am so sure that this is what God wants me to do. He doesn't have any doubts. He knows exactly what he should be thinking. He's like, I'm so sure this is what God wants me to do. I'm going to kill the oxen, and I'm going to take care of the plow, and I'm gone. And he follows Elijah, and he becomes kind of his partner that's with him. So we're going to jump ahead a little bit, and we're going to jump ahead, and it's in chapter 20, and Elijah gets to see Ahab again, and we're going to jump around a little bit now in some of the stories because there's lots of battles happening in there, and a battle's just like there's one guy fights another guy. So just imagine there's a lot of those happening. But basically Ahab, we haven't heard from him in a while. And so God says to Elijah, it says in verse 17 of chapter 21, it says, Then the word of the Lord came to Elisha the Tishbite, saying, Arise, go down to meet Ahab, king of Israel, who is in Samaria. So he goes down to Elijah, and I love when Ahab and Elijah meet because they always have some snarky comments for each other. He says, Ahab says to Elijah, Have you found me, O my enemy? I think he probably said it in like a sarcastic way. He's like, oh, my enemy, And Elijah says to him, I have found you because you have sold yourself to do what's evil in the sight of the Lord. He's like, I wouldn't have to be here except you continue to do evil things. Even after Ahab saw all the things God has done. And so he says basically this, Behold, God's told me to tell you, behold, I'm going to bring disaster upon you. Like God's done. And in verse 25, there's like a little, when you put parentheses around something, like you're kind of adding it in. There's some parentheses in the Bible, and it says this. It says, There was none who sold himself to do what was evil in the sight of the Lord like Ahab, whom Jezebel his wife incited. He acted very abominably in going after, I don't even think I said that word right, in going after idols as the Amorites had done, who the Lord cast out before the people of Israel. So like, no one else has been as evil as Ahab. Ahab's like bad guy number one right now, right? And then, and can you imagine, what do you think Elijah thinks of Ahab? Yeah, he probably's like, this guy's really been some trouble for me. I don't like him. I don't like his wife. I don't know. It's like he won't listen to me. I keep telling him that he needs to change his ways. He's not listening. It says, and Ahab heard those words, or when he heard those words, and this is something they did back then when they were showing that they were sad and remorseful, he tore his clothes. He put sackcloth on his flesh and fasted and lay in sackcloth and went about dejectedly. So it really hit him hard. He was feeling like, oh, what have I done? God's like going to just destroy me because of what I've been doing. And God got his attention a little bit. Finally, like we're like, hello, we've been telling you finally. And in verse 29, we'll put that up there. God says to Elijah, he says, have you seen how Ahab has humbled himself before me? Because he has humbled himself before me, I will not bring disaster in his days, but in his son's days I will bring disaster upon his house. So he actually says to Ahab, all right, I'm gonna cut Ahab a break a little bit. Now, this is one of those moments where I think Elijah had to do some battle in his head. And because for me, I would be like, that's not fair. Anyone else read that verse and think, that's not fair? Ahab's the one doing all the bad stuff, and you're going to let him off the hook, and you're going to bring disaster on his son later? And I would have a real, probably an attitude a little bit, where God does something that I don't think is fair. Has God ever done something that you don't think is fair? Maybe someone gets noticed and you don't. Or maybe other people have a better house than you, or a better car than you, or maybe your parents are looking for jobs and your friends' parents are looking for jobs and your friends' parents find jobs, but your parents don't. All of those things, if we don't remember who God is and know God and the knowledge of God, if If we don't have that in our head, it's going to be the Wild West up there. And you have to take all of those thoughts captive, and you have to start reminding yourself, wait, what do we know about God? What did we learn about God yesterday? God is powerful. God provides. God loves you. God seeks you. God has a plan for you. You have to constantly be reminding yourself that things may not always look like we think they're going to look. How many of you guys thought at the beginning of 2020 that you would have to finish your school year at home? Anybody had that plan? Unless you were homeschooled. Then that makes sense. But yeah, we didn't. There's so many things that have happened that we did not plan and probably wasn't what we wanted to do. Did anybody have to have something canceled because of yeah, lots of things. Graduations, parties, prom, swimming lessons, yes. Okay, those things don't seem fair, right? But we don't get to see the whole picture. Remember that timeline? The cool thing about God is that, remember yesterday I said, what power would you want? Would you want to be everywhere or be all powerful or know everything? God's all three of those things. So which I'm not going to because I'll fall. If I was to stand on this stool and I could see like the whole timeline, God sees the whole thing all at once. The entire, from the beginning to the end, he sees all of history all at once. He sees the whole picture. So he can make decisions that we don't understand because he sees what's coming next, where we don't get to see that. So we just have to trust him that right now in 2020, he knows exactly what he's doing and he has a plan. We just have to trust him with that. But if you don't believe that God's good and you don't believe that God is loving and you don't believe he has a plan for you and you haven't really studied the Bible to see all the cool things that God does, and this is kind of our letter that says, hey, this is me. Read and take a look. And if we aren't surrounding ourselves with Christian people that we can then watch God work in their life, we're not going to be able to remember that when something crazy happens. It's going to be Wild West up there. Okay? All right, so we are going to move on and see what happens in our story because there is a cool thing that Elisha does. So Elisha, two cool things. I don't know if I'll have time for both of them, but one of them is it's in the beginning of 2 Kings. We moved into 2 Kings. 1 Kings and 2 Kings were probably one book, but they're paper, and they didn't have paper, so they just divided it into two. So 2 Kings is the story continued. And this is the crazy thing. So Elijah is one of these few people that God takes to heaven in a crazy way. And I just want to share with you, and I don't know why he does it. My thought is that he takes Elijah to heaven in a crazy way so that Elisha can see it. So that Elisha, when he has to face some hard things, he's able to remember what he saw and remember how cool God is and how powerful God is, because that's going to help him with taking his thoughts captive later on. Okay, so this is what happens. In 2 Kings 2, it says, now the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven by a whirlwind, like a hurricane or just like a tornado. Well, okay. That is not something that I would think. And there's really a rare, this happens one other time in the Bible where someone doesn't die, but God takes them to heaven. And I don't know what that exactly looks like, but wow, that's crazy cool. And so a whirlwind, Elijah and Elisha were on their way from Gilgal, and Elijah said to Elisha, please stay here, for the Lord has sent me as far as Bethel. But Elisha says, as the Lord lives and as you yourself live, I will not leave you. See, Elisha, I think God nudged him and was like, hey, I'm about to do something with Elijah's life, and I want you to watch, so I want you to stay close. So about 2 or 3 times, Elijah basically tries to say, hey, why don't you stay here? And Elisha's like, no, I'm coming with you. And then they get to Bethel, and we're going to put a verse up there, and it's verse 3, and it says, and the sons of the prophet who were in Bethel came out to Elijah. So these were like little schools where people were learning how to be prophets and how to deliver God's message. And so they come to one of those, and they come out to Elijah, and they say to them, hey, because they got a little bit of a nudge from God. They say, do you know that today the Lord will take away your master from over you? And he says, yes, shh, be quiet. I don't know if he does not sure what's going to happen, or if he's just like, don't let Elijah know that I know, or something. He wants to stick with Elijah to see what happens. And so as you go on, it says, Elijah says, please stay here. And again, he says, no, I'm coming with you. And so I'm going to get to the part where he gets taken up. It says, this is such a cool part. Elijah said to him, please stay here, for the Lord has sent me to the Jordan. But he said, as the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you. So the two of them went on. 50 men are kind of following behind them, like at a distance, kind of watching what's happening. And then they get to the Jordan River. Now, if anybody's known, a lot of times in the Bible stories, God will split the water so people can walk across. When has he done that before? With Moses, right? With Joshua, split the water so they walk through. Okay, so he gets there, and Elijah takes his cloak, and he rolls it up. And then he takes it, and he strikes the water, and the water parts to one side and then to the other, and then the two of them walk across on dry ground. And when they had crossed, Elijah said to Elisha, okay, you know what's up. Something's about to happen. I'm about to be taken from you. What do you want me to do for you before I'm taken? So basically, like, what can I do for you before I'm taken in this crazy way to heaven? And Elisha, who knows what's important in life, says, I want a double portion of your spirit on me. So I want what you have. I see how God works in your life and how powerful he is. And I want what you have, because I know that's the only way I'm going to be able to get through the things that God's going to have me do. And he's like, I can't do that for you, but God can. So he's like, if you see me when I leave, then I think that's what God's going to do for you. He's going to give you that ability to see what God's plan is. And so he's like, okay, so then they are walking together, and as they were walking and talking, there's like, oh yeah, so tell me what, there's, talking back and forth. Then it says, behold, chariots of fire and horses of fire separated the two of them. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven, and Elijah saw it, and he cried, my father, the chariots of Israel and its horsemen. And then he didn't see him anymore. He was gone. And then he did that thing that I was talking about. He tore his clothes, which is a sign of just like being in like despair and sad. He tore his clothes because, this was like his father, like his mentor, someone that he was not going to see anymore. So he was really sad. But what's left behind is the cloak of Elijah. And Elisha picks up the cloak that had fallen, and he has to walk back. Now, what would be going through your head at this point? Like, I don't know. I would be like doubting whether or not God was really with me. Like, can I do what Elijah did? So he gets to the point where, and we're going to put the verse up there. He gets to the point where it says, then he took the cloak of Elijah. He's like standing at the river, and he has to make a choice. Am I going to, can you imagine having to roll this up, and he's going to see if he can do what Elijah did? How many of you would be doubting that you would be able to do it if you were Elisha? Yeah, I'd be doubting. But he takes it and he rolls it up, and it says, and when he had struck the water was parted to the one side and to the other, and Elijah walks back over. And then he gets back over to all of the 50 that were watching, and they're like, okay, like God is with you. We see that. And so they know that they can trust what Elisha says because they've seen that God is with him. And so the story kind of goes on, and Elijah does lots of cool things. He does this one cool thing where they make this stew, and it ends up being poisonous. And he's like, go get some flour. So he goes to get some flour, and he's like, just put that in there, and then it'll fix it. He does like all these like cool kind of just like everyday meets people's everyday needs with miracles, which, I'd be like, I would like a cheeseburger, please. Thank you. Boom. Like pizza for everyone. Pizza. That's probably not what God would want. Well, God might want me to give you all pizza, but not right now. But he was doing all these cool things. And so there's one other cool story that I want to tell you. I can't see the clock, so I'm just going to go for it. Am I okay on time? Thank you. Okay, so another cool thing and it's in 2 Kings 6, and it says, now the sons of the prophet said to Elijah, they're like, see the place, and these were the people that he was with, that 50. See the place where we dwell under your charge is too small for us. Let us go to the Jordan, and each of us get a log there, and they're going to make a place for them to dwell. So they're building something. And he answered, go. Then one of them said, be pleased to go with your servants. And he answered, I'm going to go with you. So they're going to build a bigger place for them to stay. So we went with them, and when they came to the Jordan, same place that he had crossed with the cloak, they cut down trees. But as one of the they were felling one of the logs, his axe head, so like the top of his axe, he was cutting down the tree, fell into the water. And so one of these sons of the prophet cries out to Elisha. He's like, my axe head fell into the water, and it's he borrowed it from someone. Have you ever had that happen where you like borrow something and you're like, oh, I just broke it? Yeah. And says, the man of God is like, this is no problem. Where did it fall? And he shows him, and then here we'll put the verse up there. It says, then the man of God said, where did it fall? When he showed him the place, he cut off a stick and threw it in here and made the iron float. So he made the axe head come back up. Now, I'm not saying that we can all just go around doing magical, cool things like that. I don't think that that's how God works. But what God does do is if we're listening closely enough to him and we are following him and we're in his word, he's going to tell us when he's going to give us the ability and extra power to do things we didn't think that we could do. Doesn't mean he's always going to do it, but that ability is there. And so this, I think, is one of those examples, because then Elijah does something really cool. And I'm going to read this. I got to get a drink of water, though, because we're going to do a little bit. This is our showdown today. And so I want to make sure I can read it really well. Ooh, that was loud. Okay, so we're going to put the mood-setting music for our showdown. So lean in a little bit. Here we go. This is called Horses and Chariots of Fire. Once, when the king of Syria was warring against Israel, he took counsel with his servants, saying, at such and such a place shall be my camp. But the man of God, who's Elisha, sent word to the king of Israel, beware that you do not pass this place, for the Syrians are going down there. And the king of Israel sent to the place about which the man of God told him. Thus, Elisha used to warn him, so that he has saved him more than once or twice. Now in the mind of the king of Assyria, he was greatly troubled by this. And he called to his servants and he said, will you not show me who of us is basically betraying us and telling the king of Israel where we're going to be? And one of his servants said, none of us, my lord, O king, but Elisha, the prophet, who is in Israel, tells the king of Israel the words that you speak in your bedroom. And he said, go and see where he is. And then I am going to go after him and seize him. So behold, he said, he is in Dothan. So he sent their horses and chariots and a great army. And they came by night, and they surrounded Elisha, the city that he was in. So when the servant of Elisha rose early in the morning, he went out, and behold, there was an army with horses and chariots all around the city. And the servant said, alas, my master, what shall we do? And Elisha says, do not be afraid, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. Then Elijah prays. This is my favorite part of the story. He says, oh Lord, please open his eyes that he may see what's out there. And so the servant is like looking at this army that's about to get them, and he says, open his eyes so he can see what I see. And God opens the servant's eyes, and the servant sees thousands and thousands of chariots of fire surrounding Elisha to protect them. Crazy, right? Crazy. I love that. Woo! He said, behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around. Woo! I just want to encourage you that when you are struggling,
I pray that God would give you the eyes to see the power that he has to protect you. And I know that there's probably someone in that room that really needs to hear that right now. That there are thousands and thousands of chariots of fire surrounding you as a child of God to be there when you need it. And part of that is you have to have the eyes to see it. And having the eyes to see it means you have to know God. And being here is a huge step because you're doing something to teach yourself something about God by being here at Kids Camp. And maybe you didn't plan to be here at Kids Camp, but God planned you to be here so that you could hear what he has for you. Oh, I love that story. Isn't that like the coolest thing? I love it. Okay, we're going to practice our verse one more time because here's the thing. If God's people were to really remind themselves of what they know about God, and if they were to continually be taking captive every single thought that tries to distract them from God and who he is. You know those voices that say, well, if God was a good God, this wouldn't have happened. I hear that in my head a lot, and I just have to say, nope, not even gonna, nope. It's like, not even gonna deal with it. Don't even want to hear it all the time. And so we're gonna stand up, practice our verse, and then I'm gonna pray for you. And then tonight you guys will get to share a little bit of what you think God's teaching you. And so I encourage you to ask God today, say, God, will you give me a nudge if you want me to share tonight? And ask him what he would want you to share. Because you are part of that timeline story, and you can share something with someone over here that will encourage them. And you just never know what words you have that could encourage them. All right, so we're going to practice our verse. So we start with we, what do we do? Destroy arguments. Now, this is a good one for you counselors later on when they're arguing and it's hot outside. We destroy arguments and every lofty thing that comes, opinion that comes against the knowledge of who? God. Everything you know about God. And all in the wrist. All in the wrist. Take captive every thought to obey Christ. Awesome. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about the greatest showdown of all, which is what Jesus did. He, ultimate cowboy, if there ever was one. But I'm going to pray for you, and then I'm going to have, I think, one of our lovely people come up. Someone's coming up. So let's bow our heads and we'll pray, and I'll pray for your day. 3, 2, 1. God, thank you so much for your word, how powerful it is, Lord. Thank you that we know that you love us, that you have a plan for us, that you are good, and you want us to be your people in your place that you designed for us, and you want to be our King, God. I pray that all the thoughts that come in our head that would distract us from you and try to keep us captive, that we would take them captive ourselves, Lord, that we would have a strategy in our head when we start to feel doubt and fear. We remind ourselves of what we know is true about you, and that would help us to remain strong and make the right choice that we need to make. So I pray that you would keep us safe today. If you would want to send some cooler weather, we would love that. It's a little hot out today, but we just thank you and praise you for all that you do in our hearts and lives. And thank you for the day in your name. Amen. All right. Can you guys say, yeah, Cindy and Sue?
In the place, are you with me? Get it bumping, keep it jumping. By the look of the crowd, I think we started something. Gonna take it everywhere we go.
Hey.
All
hello,
right, good morning
hello.
again.
There we go. Well, a lot jam-packed in there for us to soak in and think about while we're thinking about all that we just learned. So we still have more going on with
More?
camp.
We
Lots
have
of fun.
more?
Lots of fun. We do have a little business to take care of.
business.
We have some boys and girls